begin tonight's program with the school's Short Story Competition Award. Each year, the Center for Creative Arts invites entries from schools, and it was no different this year. This component of the festival, which presents learners with an opportunity to showcase their writing skills, has been fruitful to the learners for the past number of years. Learners will receive cash and book voucher awards sponsored by Adams Books. And how it works is that stories were divided into two categories, being English and Zulu. And I'd also like to thank our adjudicators for this year. For English, we had Carol Kumete and Tiny Mungwe. And for isiZulu, we had Sakile Kumete and Spindile Hlongwe. And may I call Ntate Kabelo Duncan Khatia to present the awards. Please come. For English, on the third place, we had Seung Min Jong from Crawford College for Messiah Complex. On the second place, we had Mbali Shongwe from Durban Girls High for The Pink Bully. First place, it's Julia Rosenberg from King David High, Linsfield, for the short story called Exiled. Unfortunately, Julia is not here with us. So I'll keep the... And in isiZulu category, on the third place, we have Pilani Lata of Mbali High for Oseishayila Gagayos. Sorry for that. Second place, we have Kwanele Kwala of Mte High for Isihambi. And first place, we have Nomawethu Dlamini of Fundoguhle Secondary for Inyosi. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And at this stage, we go straight to the first session. It's titled The Future of Youth Literature. And Elieshi Lema, unfortunately, is not here with us, but we have Khawula of South Africa with us, and this session will be facilitated by Mbali Vilakazi. Please welcome them on stage.
like to welcome you to tonight's session of Time of the Writer. My name is Mbali Vilakazi, and this evening I am joined by writer B.D. Khawula. And as the program indicates and has been mentioned, we were due to be in conversation with Elieshi Lema from Tanzania. Unfortunately, she couldn't be with us, but the show must go on. We have one voice, and if every voice matters, then his voice matters, even if he's on his own. So, just to get us all on the same page this evening, so to speak, we're discussing youth literature, and it's a genre often defined as literature traditionally written for ages ranging from about 12 to 18, and sometimes this is extended to 25. There's a distinction that gets made between books for children and books for young adults. The terms of reference include the fact that the themes often refer to challenges faced by youth, and the books are described as problem novels or coming-of-age novels. It doesn't stray too far from this formula. And so we'll begin with housekeeping. The structure of the evening is fairly simple. We shall begin with a reading from the author, followed by a few questions posed by myself in a discussion, hopefully, and then finally we will take some questions from the floor. Please may I ask that we bear consideration that Udada Khawula is not necessarily an English speaker. So please may I ask that your questions are clear, concise, and simple, and quite slow. It's important that he understands what you are asking him. A little on the writer this evening. B.D. Khawula started writing in 2004 and has been working in the machinery unit at the Khawula's sugar factory for 21 years. He says that what inspires him to write is his love for his country, South Africa. Khawula writes in isiZulu, and he has a collection of poems, a collection of short stories, and a play. Yihlathi Leli is Khawula's debut novel and was published in 2012. This novel follows principal character Umchitwa, a young man in grade 7 whose goal in life is to be a teacher. However, when a taxi driver offers to help him on the side of the road, Umchitwa gets roped into a world of trafficking, prescription, and illegal drugs. I think it's worth mentioning that Yihlathi Leli won a silver award in the African languages category at the Sanlam Youth Literature Awards. Khawula is a resident of Ndokozweni right here in Durban. I think not only has he written a fascinating story, but just listening to that, I think the author is a fascinating story himself. And hopefully we'll be able to get in touch with that. But to start us off, we shall take a reading from the author.
Thank you very much to get this opportunity. When I see audience, most of them are smiling because they are waiting to hear from isiZulu presentation. They know that this is very, very important language here in South Africa. If some of them, they don't understand Zulu, I think they are willing to learn how to speak and write Zulu. In this novel, I'm going to read second chapter. We're going to know how Mkhitwa, as a main character of the story, how influenced his gangsters to be involved in drugs. Isikole afunda kuso uMchithwa sabe sesiphumile ngaleso sikhathi wayesemi nabangani bakhe. Madoda lapha emhlabeni khona into yiphi leyo nto ehlalwa emadevini umngani wakhe okuthiwa unsozothela igama lakhe. Ngitethela qedela unsozothela kusho ufahlaza. Ngaleso sikhathi uMchithwa uzesula izithukuthuku kwazise ilanga libasile isibili. Madoda, kungabe niyafuna ukuba amadoda angempela kusasa? Kungabe ukubuziswa yini lokho kubuza ufahlaza? Imibuzo ayibuzani, mina ngifuna impendulo enguyebo noma cha. Akekho ongafuni ukuba indoda yangempela kusasa, kusho uNsozothela. Lezi insizwa zaqolozela umchithwa zijahe ukuba ezinendaba ngoba ziyazibonela ukuthi kukhona afuna ukukukhuluma okubalulekile. Lapho ke umchithwa ulokhu egwadlaze njalo, kodwa lezi zinsizwa axoxa nazo zivele zixakeke nje ukuthi kungabe umchithwa ungenwe yini. Bafowethu, kunogwayi ongumlingo lapha ezweni lethu. Uma ubhema kuthi cosololo, wawubhema kuphi umchithwa? Ebuza ufahlaza. Ngawubhemiswa ubhuti uNtondolo. Lo shayela itekisi eMlazi, ubuza uNsozothela. Impela nguye owangibhemisa uhlobo oluphezulu kakhulu lukagwayi. Zonke izihlobo zikagwayi zinamagama azo. Lo okhuluma ngawo kuthiwa yini? Kubuza ufahlaza. Awujwayelekile lapha kwaDumisa. Kodwa umuntu ophucuza indawo yethu ubhuti uNtondolo. Babhekana ufahlaza noNsozothela emva kokubuzwa indaba yogwayi uphucuza indawo. Kodwa namuhla kubukeka sengathi bazofunda lukhulu ngalogwayi. Sicela igama likagwayi ophucuzayo bese usabalala ngawo ukuze sizwe ukuthi uletha kanjani impucuko lapha kwaDumisa logwayi, kusho uNsozothela ehwaqabala. Elempucuko lona lingena kuphi? Kubuza ufahlaza. Ngendlela uyiyona madoda, nangokubona kwami izinto ezintsha ezenqubekela phambili yizo kanye eziletha impucuko. Ngithi angimuzwe umchithwa, kuvuma uNsozothela. Ngendlela elibalele ngayo umchithwa nabangani bakhe sebeze bahlala ngaphansi kwesihlahla. Ngifuna kusasa ukubuza uthisha omkhulu ukuthi uyawazi yini lo gwayi, kusho ufahlaza. Ngendlela okuyiya angisiboni isidingo salokho ngoba ugwayi awuvunyelwe ukubheka. Kunokwenzeka futhi ukuthi ngibona ukuthi uqinisile Nsozothela. Ngifuna ukuzibuzela nje. Yini ukhethe ukubuza uthisha omkhulu? Kubuza umchithwa ebhoka ngolaka. Phela uthisha omkhulu baba omncane. Futhi ayikho into angayazi lapha emhlabeni. Umchithwa wambuka kabi ufahlaza. Into eyenza lokho ukuthi bathi uma bekhuluma indaba yabo gwiqi usefuna ukuyisa kumuntu onguthisha. Manje akasazi noma kumele aqhubeke nodaba noma asale eseyeka kanjalo. Enye inhliziyo yamtshela ukuthi qhubeka ngoba noma angakhuluma nothisha ufahlaza ngeke kwenzeke lutho. Mhlawumbe uyazidlalela nje nalofahlaza. Madoda, lo gwayi ngikhuluma ngawo udinga olukhulu usizo lwenu. Qhubeka mchithwa, ucela ufahlaza. Wakhiwa ngalokho kuthiwa ama-ARVs. Bese uhlanganiswa nensango kuphume unqambothi lwento. Isidakamizwa lesi ngendlela engibona ngayo. Uthisha omkhulu ngicabanga ukuthi uyasazi. Wena fahlaza ungalinge nje uyikhulume le ndaba kamchithwa. Yini uthi isidakamizwa? Kubuza ufahlaza. Into okukhona kuyo insango phakathi nje isidakamizwa. uqinisile usozothela kunanela umchitho. Bengizidlalela nje angeke ngimtshele ubaba omncane. Manje sikusize kanjani kubuza ufahlaza kumchitho. Ngicela ningizamisa ama-ARVs kubantu enibaziyo ukuthi bayawasebenzisa ngoba uBhunintondolo wangitshela ukuthi uyongipha iwunga ngeke nangephutha angidayisele. Ubala kakhulu kimina lo kusho uNtsotsothela. Mina ngizozama kodwa angive ngifisa ukuqala ngokuyibhema lewunga ngaphambi kokuba ngenze imizamo yokuthola ama-ARVs. Kusho ufahlaza oselangazelele ukulibhema lewunga. Kwathi gidi kumchithwa emva kokuqonda ukuthi abangani bakhe le ndaba ayikhulumayo kubukeka behambisana nayo. Yize ufahlaza efisa ukuyibhema kuqala. Wena fahlaza khululeka, iwunga uzoyibhema kakhulu, ungesabi indoda yamadoda. uBhunintondolo hleze afike nayo eningi kunale ngoba isincane. Noyibhema nizinishane ngayo zisizwe. Baqala babhema. Lwashaya uLwesihlanu ntambama. Wajabula kwathi akafe umchithwa uma ibona uNtondolo epake imoto yakhe ngehla komuzi wakubo kaMchithwa. Wabona ukuthi uze kuye ukuzobheka leyo mpahla. Kuhamba kanjani umchithwa ngaleyo mpahla? Kubuza uNtondolo emva kokubingelelana. Ungesabi bhuti, abangani bami bathembise ukuthi bazongipha ama-ARVs ukuze usizakale. Into abayifuna kakhulu ukuthi bayibheme lewunga ngaphambi kokuthi benze imizamo. Ngibezwisile nje enye ngasala ngayibhema. Ubala lo emnika eningi iwunga le. Hey, wangisiza bhuti. Ngicela ukuyithola nami leyo mpahla kusho uNtondolo enwaya ikhanda. Njengoba sizoyibhema nabo sekuseduze phambili bhuti. Isithakiwe uma isinje? Yebo isithakiwe, sekusele ukuyifaka ephepheni nje bese nilayitha nibheme. Kodwa ningayifaki yonke. Kufanele ukwazi ukuthi leyo eyezinsuku ezine. Ngicela ukuhamba nawe ubambisane nabangani bakho. Ngicela inombolo yakho yocingo bhuti. Ucela umchitho. Nebala wamnika behlukana onkana. Endleleni uNtondolo ucabanga umchithwa omuhle kanjena osezodlala iwunga. Lo mcabango wawuphebeza ngoba naye iwunge akazifundisanga. Kodwa wafundiswa. Futhi le wunga imnika imali eningi. Uma kuqhubha kanje umsebenzi ukushayela itekisi uzowuyeka. Ngenkathi umcabango uqhubeka ngewunga wabona iyinhle yona ngoba ayibulali muntu. Ukube iyabulala ngabe le ngane yakancukwane akayifaki kuyona. uNtondolo wazithathelela ngokuthi akekho umuntu ombhemise ngenkani iwunga umchitho. Uzibhemela yena. Wabona kuzotholakala inqwaba yabathengi bayo la kwaDumisa. Into eyenza acabange kanjalo ukuthi umchithwa nguye ozongamela abathengi bese yena uNtondolo amlethele. Mhlawumbe nonina uMamsomi kunokwenzeka ahehwe ngumchithwa wakhe. Kubo kaMchithwa yikubo kaMali. Ibhizinisi into yakhona. Kuyo lemicabango ayicabangayo ngewunga yakhe uDlamini akukho nokugodwa akubona kuyiphutha. Akacabanga ukuthi hleze uMamsomi angayithandi indaba yewunga. Futhi uyakhohlwa uNtondolo ukuthi ingoduso yakhe yachithwa yiyo indaba yayo lewunga eMlazi. Ubona umchithwa engenayo ingoduso engachitheka. Lewunga phela uyidayiselwa yiNdiya laseMobeni. elinenqwaba yamaloli alayisha imithwalo anqamule amazwe. Nalo belu leli ndiya liyayidla lewunga. Kodwa ukezwe likhala kakhulu ngama-ARVs elize liwathenge. Wamisa itekisi uNtondolo ngoba ngaleso sikhathi sekuhlwile. Wakhipha isibhamu wasibeka phezulu kwesihlalo esiseduze kwakhe. Nanku umcabango ukumtshela ukuthi akaye kokweka. Nguye lo ephendula imoto iqonda eKentetone. Lapho wafika wayimisa khona. Wakhipha izinto zokugquzula isicaba. Walayisha inqwaba izimpahla emotweni. Phela la ehlala khona uphila ngazo izinto azebile.
Judging by the bursts of laughter, it is a very hilarious and interesting story. It was my first attempt at fully reading Mbali from top to bottom, and it's completely accessible and employs a conversational and fairly simple tone throughout. But we're here to discuss with the author. The title says The Future of Youth Literature, but we're going to anchor that in reference, more particularly the writer and the work that's been created here, and then ask him questions that relate in a broader sense to youth literature within the South African context. But let's begin with the celebration. Yeah. You won the award, Silver, for the Sanlam Youth Literature Awards.
Yes.
For your debut novel. This is your first novel.
Yes.
How did that make you feel? What did that mean to you, as somebody who's never written a novel before?
I was very happy to hear that my novel, Yisati, or in English, This is Forest. I was very happy.
Oh, perhaps. I just want to disturb about by cutting and just even adding to that Yishlati Leli is probably closer to the idea of it's a jungle out here. So that's actually the title it's chosen for his book, that the phrase that it's a jungle out here.
I was very happy because it is not easy to be a winner. Something which is very easy is to be a loser. Thirdly, among of 42 Zulu novelists from KZN, I was only me to present them there in Gauteng. That was a god, like a god.
All right, so this is not your first time writing. This is your debut novel, but you've written a collection of poems and you've written short stories, much like the young people who joined us here today. When did you decide that you were ready for a novel? What was that process for you? How did you move from poems to short stories to novel?
What I did, I read 2 novels. My purpose of reading those 2 poems was to learn or was to choose which good style of writing I must use when I write a novel.
What books were those? What 2 books were those?
I wrote Uxolelwa Abanjani, written by Dr. Nakanjani Sibiya, and Ngisinga Empumalanga, written by beloved Professor Otinumar, best writer in South Africa.
You read the two novels. I mean, did you know that you wanted to write a novel? Have you always wanted to write a novel? Because you don't come from a writing background.
Yes.
So how did you come to write in the first place?
Me, as a writer, I write everything. I write poems, as you have mentioned, short stories, drama, novel, as a first novel, this one. I write everything. I'm not a writer only who write only one thing, you see.
Okay. Why a youth novel? Since you write everything, you could have written anything. Why this story? Why a book for young South Africans? Why this story?
Okay, good question. There was a competition from Tafelberg. That competition stated clearly that we must, those who want to participate in that competition must know exactly how to write, because they want to write, all writers who want to participate in that competition must write for age from 14 to 18 years. It means that is a youth novel. That's why I have written this novel.
Okay, so that's why you wrote it. Okay. The other question then is you write ngesizulu, from your poems to your short stories to your play. Is this not necessarily that English, English is not a language you use all the time, but is it also a decision that you make that you want to write in your language?
Yes. It is my decision, because Zulu is my vernacular.
Okay, it's your vernacular, but there's an ongoing discussion, as we are all aware of, that we need to be creating and publishing more work in other languages besides English. And the question I have for Khawula is, all right, so you make the decision to write in isiZulu, and that's how you have developed as a writer. But now, reaching this stage and where you are, have you experienced any challenges in terms of trying to be a writer who writes isiZulu? Are there any difficulties in terms of, maybe at some point trying when you wanted to get your things published, that you had any difficulties there?
Yes, it's very difficult. It's not easy. As I have stated that I chose to use Zulu language. It becomes better because it's my language. If I used Afrikaans or English, it will be worst, you see.
Okay, so you decide to enter this competition, and it has a set category, which is youth. Who is Umkhwitwa? Is Umkhwitwa someone you know in your own community? Is he your nephew? Who is Umkhwitwa? How did you decide on this character?
I thought that the name of this character must be Umkhwitwa. Umkhwitwa is the person in English thrown away. Is thrown away. No one likes the person because he's a bad man. In this story, I decided to use that name because Wonga is unacceptable. Or drugs are not acceptable because it spoils the nation. That's why I use this character to be Umkhwitwa.
Do you know a young man who is like him?
they are disturbing us.
We know why you named him Mkwitwa, but in terms of the story itself, the story that you've written, how you've chosen where the story happens, the setting, these young people who are in your story, are these young people you have come across within your own community? Are these characters that you interact with, have seen, have met as young South Africans?
Yes, because we all know that there are bad things are happening in our community. That those things, like we can say animalism, because it is a very disgraceful to read from a certain newspaper that, hey, this young boy of 20 years raped 94 old women. That is animalism. I thought that no. Drugs are involved in this issue of raping old people.
And so are you writing to those young people? Who are you talking to with this book? You are making this comment about the observation of what you're experiencing and what you're seeing. But who is this book for? Who are you? Who is your audience? Who are you wanting to speak to with Vilakazi?
I want to talk to youth. I want them that they mustn't they mustn't involve themselves in drugs, because drugs spoil our nation.
Okay, but now there is also the idea that young South Africans don't read. There's the perception that young South Africans don't like to read and don't want to read. Do you agree with this? I mean, is your book going to reach those people? Will they read it?
If youth is clever enough, must read our books. That is, but if are stupid, they mustn't read.
But do you think your writing in isiZulu might help in any way with that? Do you think it'll help that you write your books in isiZulu?
Yeah, especially here in South Africa, as I stated before, that here in South Africa, many people read isiZulu. That's why this book can contribute something among the isiZulu readers, because majority here in KZN or in South Africa, many people read isiZulu.
Is your book in your local library, in where you live?
Yeah, here in Montclair, I think is available.
So you think it's available? In Yishatileli, there's a very present voice of the community. The community is present in terms of the impact that the young people, the actions of the young people have on them, and there is a consistent linking back to voices of elders within the community who are commenting, or enraged members of the community who start to want to take the law into their own hands. And what I wanted to ask Dr. Khawula about that is that he specifically creates, you've written a novel that where the community is present, right? There are people who are wanting to either hurt these young men, take the law into their own hands because they don't feel safe, or there's the aunt who's trying to help them, stops helping them, but there's community. There's a sense of the community is there. In your own opinion, what is it that the community can be doing to respond to what is happening with young people, let's say in a township or in a setting like you have created in your book, if at all?
I think community they must make sure that they hunt or look for Mchithwa and his gangsters and take them to jail, because they mustn't take law into their hands.
Again, still on the same issue again in the book, the Mchithwa has a mother and he has no father. And when the police eventually come in to look for him in the story, the mother prays, and consistently throughout the story, all that she does is pray. And this is indicative of a lot of homes where parents feel paralyzed in terms of what do they do. But now we've spoken about the community. You're a parent. As a parent, how does a parent deal with Mchithwa? Because the police come in to find him, and she's very evasive. She doesn't help with answers in your book. She's not trying to answer. She's not trying to help them. Is that part of the problem?
Yeah, you see, the mother of Mchithwa called Mamsomi.
Yes.
She was scared. She afraid Mchithwa. But she's supposed to take Mchithwa straight to jail. Mamsomi, Mchithwa is a pampered child. Mamsomi is supposed to take her son to jail, but he didn't do that. It means it's a challenge to parents that if children are doing something illegally, those children must be imprisoned.
Now you have been working working the machinery at Hewlett's Sugar Factory for 21 years, yes?
Yes, a long time.
And you continue to do so, you are there?
Yes, I continue. At the moment, I'm on leave, but I still work for that firm or factory.
So when do you write? I mean, what are your hours? When do you find the time to write? How do you write? Do you have a special room? How do you write?
During my spare time, I write because I like writing so much. Even now, I have written a novel of 165 pages, though I haven't got a sufficient time. But in Zulu, la kukhona khona indlela nothando lukhona.
I think just finally, before we open up to the floor for a few questions, as a whole, in the book, Khawula looks at a number of things. He looks at the disintegration of the family structure as a result of a missing parent. Mchithwa has no father, so he's in a single-parent home. He also examines how peer pressure works in the relationship between Mchithwa and his friends uFahlaza and Ntsotsothela, as well as how easily adults within the community manipulate younger people in terms of the relationship with the taxi driver, Umdondolo. And then he also touches a bit, or makes commentary on the issue of HIV/AIDS, although he tackles it from a completely different angle in that it's not the focal point of the story, but it is through the ARVs being needed for the Uunga. He carries the narrative of HIV/AIDS throughout the course of the story. And what I wanted to ask him, before we just go to the floor, did you intend to cover all of these things in this one novel?
Yes, it was possible to do that. Because our government, who loves his people, he put clearly that if any patient is HIV positive, must be given ARVs. Then it's very awful when culprits use ARVs to make iwunga as a drug. But government, I think, doesn't like that, because the main purpose of ARVs is to help positive people for treatment.
At this point, I'd like to open up the floor for any questions. Again, please may I ask that we remember to be concise and clear and slow so that Khawula can understand.
Well, well, you know, you live in a largely untransformed white supremacist society when you are in a province that is populated by 80% Zulu speakers, in a room in which an overwhelming majority speaks isiZulu, and you are discussing a Zulu novel with an author that has been said to be not necessarily an English speaker, but still the festival feels reason to have the discussion in English. I simply do not understand this. I lament this. I think Frans Fanon, Steve Biko would be really angry.
You're asking me a question.
Yes. Kodwa Bab Khawula ngicela ukubongela ngokuthi ke uqhubeke ubhale ngolimi lwakho, usiqaje, uziqhenye, ulandela amaqhawe afana noNgungi waTyongo asikhumbuza ukuthi singobani njengama-Afrika. Ngicela uqhubeke uye phambili. Siyabonga.
Ake bakuzwile bangithisile ngoba ngikhuluma isilungu. Uzizwele?
Yeah.
Yes, can I?
Okay. No.
Yes.
Before I give you a chance, I want to respond to the guy. Mfowethu, ngibonga kakhulu nami ukungibongela. Ya ngoba isiZulu kulimi lwethu la eMzansi esiqhenyayo ngalo. Njengoba ngikhuluma la, nami ukukhuluma isiNgisi ngiphoqwe isimo.
Ingxaki is that iphinde ibhideke lelo because manje ngixhosa. So xa ngizothela notata ngizothela isiXhosa, ingxaki ikhona apho. And then secondly, because I think it's only right as well that I also am heard, because when you are addressing that kind of question, tela nam, right? So one, ndizothela isiXhosa utata angandiva ncam. Mna xa ndizothetha ndibuza imibuzo yam, andizukwazi usibuza ngesiZulu. Sizawubhidana notata, which serves no purpose. That's just one of the ideas. I hear you completely, fully, but it stands to reason, because I must interview Dada ngesiZulu ndithetha isiXhosa. One. Secondly, Dada fired his translator naye.
Right. Okushuthi ngempela mfethu uzesiqede nawe. Isikhathi masile sikhuluma siphikisana. Angifuna singayivuli inkulumo mpikiswano la ngoba isikhathi sihamba. Manje engakusho kodwa nje ngempela uma ngikhuluma ngesiZulu ngitshengisa ukuthakasa kakhulu, ngiyajabula nami. Right, inhloso ye-festival bana sijabulisa isiZulu ukuthi thina ababhali sikhuthaze ababhali babhale ngesiZulu ulimi lwabo, mother tongue. Ukuthi nina nonke bhala ngesiZulu, bhalani kakhulu ngesiZulu njengoba kusho nje, ngiyabonga.
Because it was inevitable. It was definitely an inevitable question. Thank you. Thank you.
Baba, you want to reach more readers. Do you think this novel should be made a set book for Zulu home language? Should it be studied more intensively in schools?
Yes, I wish this novel to be in all schools in South Africa, not only in KZN. All writers here, as well as Zulu writers, there is a competition. There are many Zulu writers. Even we want some more. But hey, I wish this to be in all schools. I think all teachers who are here will buy my novel because it's very interesting.
It is very interesting. It's great. Any other questions?
Yes, I do have a question. I'd like to firstly greet the audience, and I'm sorry, Sis Mbali, but unfortunately I wish to ask this in Zulu.
No problem.
And I wish for you to translate.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah. Khawula, ngiyayithanda into oyibhalile. Ngiphila endaweni enjalo eyilokishi. Into ethanda ukusiphatha kabi thina ababhala abancanyana nje abazama ukubhala ngesiZulu ongazange futhi athole nemfundo ethe yokuqhubeka etertiary noma kuphi ukuthi mawuthi uyibhalile inkondlo yakho ngesiZulu uyinike ongcono bese yayishintshe yenze yakhe ngesingisi. Manje ikuphi wena baba ongakuzamela abanye abasalandelayo abafuna ukubhala ngesiZulu ngoba ama-exercise cha namagcwele endlini kodwa ngeke nginike umuntu ngoba ayibavele bakushintshe esingisini sabo ugcine ngasaphathwa nokuthi ngeke ngakubhala. Okwesibili engifuna ukubuza ukuthi-ke yini oyenzile kuleli lokishi ohlala ngakulona ukuqoqa abantu abasha abancane bagwimisele wunga ubazame nabo emkhakheni wokufunda ngoba abanye bayakwazi ukufunda abanye futhi bafunda kancane basheshe basishiye isikole ubasize ekutheni babone ububi bedakamizwa bakhiphe lamakhono amancane nawo ukuze bakwazi ukuqhubeka nempilo beyeke imikhuba emibi. Ngiyabonga.
Translate, yeah. Susu, can you translate in English?
And then I'll just get like pelted with more bananas. I think the first question relates to advice that Khawula, please correct me if I'm wrong, sis, that Khawula has for writers, for young writers who are wanting to write ngesiZulu.
Yes.
Exercises, so advice that he has for writers who would like to write ngesiZulu, exercises that speak to writing directly ngesiZulu, not having to work off English exercises and try to use those paradigms for Zulu language writing.
Yeah.
That's the first question.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the first part of the question. And the second part of the question is she's asking that what has Dada Khawula done in his own community to assist, address, or help the young people that he's talking about in his novel.
Yes, and to actually put short the first question for someone who really needed for it to be translated in English, my question was for that Khawula, and we are black, we are trying to write, some of us can't reach varsity, some of us can't get bachelors. What can he implement or what can he advise to be done for people who really want to write but can't afford tertiary, can't afford to have those degrees, but when you come to them you find that they've written so many things that have a meaning? That was the question.
Thank you.
Okay. Sisi, yaza ngikubomvu laphi. Ngabe ngibhekona ngibona. Wow, lapha emuva sisi. Yazi bengibheka la. Hayi sisi ngendlela okuyona ilikhulu lento okhuluma ngayo ngoba la okusetshenzwa khona kuneyinkinga. Ya kufanele ngikusho lokho akukho la kuqonde khona nje. Engakusiza ngako sisi uma ngibuzwa okokuqala nje wena kugcwele i-exercise lapho ubhale ngesandla. Mina ngaphansi kosiba ukuthi inhlangano yethu ababhali la eKZN. Okusho ukuthi mhla ka-1 June sizohlangana khona le Howard College. Usihlalo wenhlangano usawukele ngubani uprofessor khona la ecampusini. Ukuthi nje ngibona sisi kuba unothando lokubhala uqhubeke futhi mangibuzo ubhale. Ngibona kufanele uye endlini nababhali mhla ka-1 June la eHoward College. Nombani hayi wena ukuthi ubuze kahle suvulele nabanye ade benqena ukubuza. Okwesibili sisi mina ke ngazalwa ngakhulela endaweni kaDumisa lapha eMzimba ukuthi isifunda ngathi sami ikavula amehlo. Mina njengekhomanisi othanda izwe lakhe kakhulu ngiworried kakhulu ngentsha ongangukuthi sengizame ikaningi ukuthi ngihlanganise intsha kuba futhi ke okunye okwenzekayo mina ngiyasebenza njengisebenzela kakhulu ngiselivini kwimali angisitholi isikhathi esiningi sokuba semphakathini kakhulu bangisuke ngidle emsebenzini inhlanhla ke namhlanje kuba ngiselivini kwenzeka le event kodwa ke iqa ngiyazama ukuba ngiselivini mhla ka-27 sinomhlangano kwavula amehlo enkantolo sikhulume igxathu eliyaphambili ngalombuzo wakho wesibili ngazama selokhu kwaba yilast ingonyaka we-ofile 2012 ukuthi ngihlanganise intsha sixoxe sibone njani sakaliphi igiya eliyaphambili kodwa ngizogcina nginqobile.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. There's a young student in the front seat.
Khawula ngiyayizwa incwadi yakho iyakhuluma yona because thina ayuthi kahle kahle mangibhekisisa kahle ibheke kuthina ngqo because iyasichazela ngokuthi ayihlathi le. So umbuzo wami mina kubaba Khawula ebengithanda ukubuza ukuthi ubaba Khawula how can he be so sure ukuthi le ncwadi kahle kahle njengoba ichaza ukuthi ihlathi leli izokwazi ukuthi ishintshe impilo zabantu abaningi ezisina iyodi noma mhlambe ngacabanga ukuthi lo mbuzo lokuthi engaba nesiqiniseko esingakanani ukuthi incwadi yakhe ingakwazi ukuthi ishintshe impilo zabantu abasha.
So the question is, will writing this kind of book directed at youth addressing these kinds of issues have any direct impact, practical, tangible impact on the lives of the people he is talking about and talking to?
Impendulo ithi onezindleba kezo.
Baba Khawula's response says that those who have the ears to listen, let them listen, let them hear, they will hear.
Okusho ngalowo nqondo ukuthi kona kwethiwe ngesizulu ngeke uphuzise ihashi ngamanzi amanzi ngawafuni ngeke umuntu uhlangwe kangakanani.
Can't take a horse, you can take a horse to the water but you can't make it drink.
Ya kodwa ke okusempeleni kumnikelo nje wami ukuthi engikuphonze sivivaneni ukuthi abantu abasha bafunde babiyeke lobulwane abajwayele ukwenza. Ubulwane ngempela ukuthi uthi uneminyaka ewu-18 udlwengula umuntu ono-98 years into enjani leyo.
Okay, I think we can perhaps take one last comment from Baba Khawula and then close the session, and I believe we shall be going to interval. That will be followed by the following session, which will begin shortly after interval. So So I'd just like to invite Baba Khawula to have any last thoughts that he would like to say. I'm already ashes in this chair, so whatever you want to do, whatever you want to do.
Engakusho bakwethu ngiyabona sekathi angedwa kulempi engilwayo yokuthi isizulu sethu njengolimo lwesilo phela siphethe isilo samabandla wonke. Isilo ukuhlanga lomhlabathi sisho njalo thina sithi uhlanga lomhlabathi asifuni isizulu sife waphela mawubulala isizulu bulala isizwe lesizwe sinolimi laso mawubulala ulimi lesizwe bulala isizwe ukuthi bakwethu esanomqondo ofanayo wokuthi sihloniphe isilo sethu samabandla wonke asiqhubekeni sibhale ngesizulu sethu hleze ngempela sinqobe. Ngibonga kakhulu nabamhlophe impela basibhidlishe isizulu bazosazi egcineni.
Okay, translation as well, since then I became the impromptu translator. So Baba Khawula is just saying that he's thankful for the questions and issues that were raised this evening, specifically speaking to the issue of him speaking in isiZulu, addressing this discussion in isiZulu, speaking about his work in isiZulu, and it is something he feels passionately about, that there should be, that's how it should be working, that he should be having the opportunity to speak his language, and he was encouraging everybody in the room that it is important for us to continue to speak our languages, to continue to work in our languages, to create in our languages, because to do so is to also continue to hold on to, perpetuate, and also take with us into the future our own ways of living, our ways of life, and our ways of seeing the world, that the culture itself is embedded within the use of language and the need for us to use the language. So that is what Tata Khawula is saying as a closing statement. And I'd just like to thank you, even for the difficult questions and the hard questions. Thank you very much. Just one last thought in terms of from a facilitation perspective, because the discussion was essentially about youth literature. And as I was coming today, I don't know if you noticed, but you should have noticed that there was a poster on the headlights from the Daily News, and it was saying that teens tell us what they think. And I think that's essentially what this is about, that is a society we should be fostering, that is a society we should be moving towards, where we are open, we have the communication lines open, that we are consistently aware of bridging the generation gap, that we are aware of what young people are going through, that young people are visible, that young people are able to be heard. Not only is it a one-way where we're talking to young people, but young people should be able to talk back and should be heard, and there should be spaces for that. And I think youth literature creates those spaces, and I certainly hope that we will continue to write young people and continue to have young people write themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mbali, and thank you, Khawula.